This Saturday with his briefing.
Usually a time where we get to get together with friends, spend some time with the kids, with family. Obviously, this is another different Saturday as we've had over the past few weeks. We need you to continue to stay home. We need you to continue to do everything we can to flatten the curve. Obviously, there are sacrifices we're all making, but it's beginning to work. We see promising news out of BC that over the past couple of weeks, the measures taken in place by so many Canadians, the choices that Canadians have made have had an impact on the overall numbers, but we need to keep it up. We need to continue to do what is necessary to prevent the spread of COVID-19, which means continuing social distancing, continuing to not go out unless you absolutely have to, continuing to think about caring for each other, thinking about protecting each other, and thinking about protecting our healthcare workers and those essential workers who are doing such extraordinary service to keep things going, to keep us safe at the same time. C'est une responsabilité que nous partageons tous.
This is a responsibility that we all have, to stay home and to do everything we can to prevent any extension of this pandemic or it hurting other people. Here on this beautiful Saturday, we should all be staying home in isolation and not be taking any steps that might put at danger our health care workers or our loved ones. But as you know, we have been encouraging people to stay home, particularly if they have symptoms of COVID-19.
People, particularly if you feel the onset of symptoms of a cold, of COVID-19, you need to stay home. You need to isolate. You need to not travel. People have been following that, but I can enhance that we have formalized some of the domestic travel rules. As of Monday at noon, people showing any signs whatsoever of COVID-19 will be denied boarding on all domestic flights and intercity passenger trains.
Today, I'm announcing that Transport Canada has introduced new rules for travel. Obviously, we've been saying for a long time that if you have any symptoms of COVID-19, you must not travel, you must stay home. But starting now, or rather starting on Monday at noon, if people try to travel by plane or through domestic means or by train, they will not be allowed to board if they have any symptoms whatsoever of COVID-19. We must continue to keep a safe distance from each other. We must continue to protect ourselves, and we must continue to make the responsible decisions. Again, I want to thank the millions and millions of Canadians who are doing precisely that. It's extremely important so that we can all stay safe and so that we can ensure that when this crisis is over, we can go back to a normal life and continue to have a prosperous and healthy country. But it requires that everyone do their share now and in the coming days and weeks. Last night, I had an opportunity to do something that I love to do. I was able to spend some time with members of my youth council, and for me, spending time with young people, even if it's through audiovisual means, it's great because it gives me energy and it helps me to realize just how much young people are involved. I was with Minister Chagger and two parliamentary secretaries, Darren Fisher and Adam Vaughan, and we had an open discussion with young people from the council right across the country.
I was able to have with the young people on the Prime Minister's Youth Council last night were extraordinary. Obviously, lots of questions and comments around COVID-19 and vulnerable populations from the north to internet access and broadband access for rural communities, questions about what young people can do, questions around what they can tell their friends who are doing well or not doing well, conversations about mental health as well, because obviously this is a moment moment of anxiety and stress for so many people. This was a great conversation, like so many of the great conversations being had amongst Canadians across the country. Our young people specifically, we've been counting on them over the past years to continue to step up in the fight against climate change, in the fight against poverty, in supporting a better world internationally and at home. And we continue to need young people to be that vehicle for building a better future and sharing messages. Obviously, young people, like every generation, are chafing at the bit in terms of having to be self-isolated, particularly at a time when we tell our young people at an age where we say, now is the time to go out and discover the world, whether it's with a backpack or in a laboratory. Make new discoveries, challenge yourselves, challenge the world. And they're looking at their plans for the spring and their summer jobs, and they're realizing that there is a massive anxiety and a massive uncertainty out there. But that doesn't mean we're powerless. Doesn't mean they're powerless. On the contrary, this generation of young people is so committed and engaged to creating a better world that we need you to keep leading the way you are. We need you to share your messages with friends. We need you to lead by example. We need you to be challenging and discovering the world in virtual ways. There are ways that you can continue to shape the future we all live in every single day, not just with your choices, but with your leadership. And that's what we need. On a besoin que nos jeunes continuent de mettre
our young people to continue to challenge the world, to continue to push people to do what is possible, and to want to be the leaders that we need. And during these times of crisis, we need that even more. So I'm counting on you, and I know that the present and the future are in very good hands with our young people. We are going to be there for you. As young people, we know that there are many out there who may not qualify for the emergency benefit. Others will be supported through their businesses if they work part-time as a result of the assistance we're providing to PMEs. But we will continue to find other ways to ensure that you remain confident not only about the future, the present, but about the future as well.
Help people. Yes, young people who will, many of them qualify for the CERB and be helped through the payroll subsidy that the wage subsidy we're creating for businesses and bringing up to 75%. But there's always going to be more to do, and we're going to keep listening and looking how we can make sure that Canadians get through this in the best possible way by supporting them now and ensuring that we can roar back stronger once this is all done. That's why we put forward big measures to help businesses over the past few days. Increasing the wage subsidy to 75% means businesses across the country are now realizing they're going to be able to keep people on their payroll, keep that relationship going between them and their workers, and even rehire people who they didn't think they'd be able to support over the past 2 weeks. We know that what we do now to hold things together, to give people the ability to stay home, to isolate, to hold through this difficult time is key to how we will come back stronger afterwards. But we need to stick together, and we need to do it. On a besoin
we need to look at everything we can do, every one of us, to come through these difficult times. And that's why we provided assistance to small and medium-sized businesses. We are also facilitating access to credit. Cash flow will be very important for people these days in order to borrow money, for example, if they need. And we've made loans of $40,000 available, interest-free for the first year, and you will not have to pay $10,000 of that if certain conditions are met. So we will be working together to ensure that we have the ability to come through this. Our plan of $107 billion was passed by Parliament, and we are going to be starting to deliver that aid to Canadians, and Canadians are anxious to receive it. But we're working as fast as we can, as hard as we can, to deliver that to Canadians as soon as possible. This is an unprecedented situation, but that's exactly what we're going to do together. The Canadian Emergency Response Benefit will provide $2,000 every month for the next 4 months to Canadians. And I'm inviting you now to apply on Mon Dossier, Revenue Canada, so that you can apply as soon as the portal is open in the next few days. And if you can, register as well with a direct deposit so that the money is put directly into your bank account.
Canada Emergency Response Benefit will give people $2,000 every month for the next 4 months to help get us through this time. I know an awful lot of people have showed interest in it already. My recommendation to you is to go on the Canada Revenue Agency site and sign up in advance through the My Account links. Once you do that, in the coming days when we're able to start actually opening applications, you'll have a head start. And if you can, please opt for the direct deposit option, which will let you get this money into your bank accounts sooner and is simpler for everyone as well. There are lots of things that we're doing to make sure that we get through this together. But everything we do, we need to do together. Every single individual, every single household has its role to play in making sure that Canada and Canadians do well through this. We also have a role to play in making sure that the world gets through this, both by modeling solutions and demonstrating what can be done when we all work together. This is going to be key, particularly as parts of the world that are much more vulnerable are beginning to get harder hit. We need to be able to get through this so we can help rebuild a world in which people can prosper and everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed. I know Canadians are up to this challenge. I know we're going to do this together. J'ai énormément confiance dans les Canadiens.
I have a great deal of confidence in Canadians and our ability to come through this because we do what we always have to do in these difficult times. We're there for each other. Thank you and have a great Saturday.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va maintenant passer à la période de questions en commençant par le téléphone. 4 questions avec suivi. Modérateur, c'est à vous.
Merci, thank you. La première question est de Michel Lamarche de TVA Nouvelle. La parole est maintenant à vous.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau.
Good morning, Mr. Trudeau. First of all, I'd like to hear more about the new rules that will be coming into effect by Transport Canada. Has this prompted you to reflect on tightening up the interprovincial borders, or maybe you're not at that stage yet? Well, we do recognize that there are a great many Canadians who are already self-isolating. They have changed their behavior, they're no longer traveling, and we're going to have to continue to do that, all of us. At the same time, we recognize that there are some people who need to travel in order to deliver essential goods and deliver food, and we would not like to take steps that we absolutely do not need to take right now. But as I said, we will always look at what is needed, and we will take whatever measures are necessary at the right time, if they become necessary. But for now, that is not something we are planning to do in the short term.
Obviously, people across the country have been doing an excellent job of staying home, of not traveling for anything that's not absolutely necessary, and we encourage people to continue to do that. However, there is essential transport and travel that is happening as merchandise, as food gets delivered across the country. We need to continue to ensure that that's happening. Every step of the way, we're going to look at whether we need to take further measures to keep Canadians safe and to keep our economy rolling on essential goods. We will make those decisions as they are needed to be made, but right now we're not looking at closing provincial borders.
Suivi, Michel?
Il y a des snowbirds qui
There are snowbirds coming back today. We can see them at La Colle, and the SQ has been there to tell them to respect the quarantine. But there's a lot of confusion about people coming back and what they're supposed to do. Mr. Trudeau, when they arrive in Canada, are they allowed to take walks or ride their bike under the Quarantine Act? What applies to them? Well, the Quarantine Act says that people have to self-isolate if they're coming back from traveling, and that's extremely important. We need people who might have been exposed overseas or in other countries to not transmit COVID-19 to the rest of the population, which is trying to protect itself. So we're asking everyone to follow the rules and the advice from Health Canada and the Canada Public Health Agency.
Prochaine question.
Merci. La prochaine question est de Mélanie Marquis, La Presse. Votre ligne est ouverte. À vous la parole.
Merci. Bonjour, M. Trudeau.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Trudeau.
Que les autobus,
Why?
elles aussi font des trajets interprovinciaux.
Which buses that travel between the provinces are not included in this new measure? Well, Transport Canada's measures apply to industries that are within federal responsibility. Now, obviously, there are industries that do not fall within the federal government's purview, and we are now putting measures in place so that people do not travel if they have symptoms of COVID-19. Now, obviously, if people have symptoms, we ask them to stay home. But at this point, they won't be able to take a plane or a train.
We recognize, and we've told people who have symptoms that they need to self-isolate, they need to stay home, they should not travel. Now there will be Transport Canada rules coming into place that will prevent anyone indicating symptoms to travel by airline or by train.
Suivi, Mélanie.
Sur un autre sujet, mais oui, merci. Sur un autre sujet,
Yes, on another subject, Mr. Trudeau, about the U.S. and Canadian border. We understand that the U.S. is turning back some people at the border to their native country. And I'm wondering what you think of this. Well, we are currently in an unprecedented situation in the history of our country and perhaps in the history of the world. And our ability to respond in order to protect Canadians and prevent the spread of this virus are, by definition, exceptional measures. We will do everything we can to reflect our approach and our values, but we must protect Canadians during this difficult time, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Prochaine question.
Merci. Thank you. The next question is from Rod Nickel from Reuters. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Premier Kenney said yesterday that he'd like to see a coordinated North America response to OPEC's actions to flood the world with oil. He suggested ideas like tariffs on Saudi oil and an anti-dumping case. Do you support these ideas, and do you support the more aggressive approach to OPEC's actions recently?
Yeah. Obviously, we are very concerned with OPEC's decisions that are putting at risk the livelihoods of people around the world, particularly Canadians who work in the oil and gas sector. We are focused on helping those Canadians, helping people who are hardest hit by economically by COVID-19. The measures we've put in place will support Canadians right across the country, including in our oil and gas sector. But we also know it's a sector that has been particularly hard hit, and we will look for further help to be able to support people as they get through. In terms of international collaboration, coordination, we continue to be part of conversations on this issue around the world.
Would you look at a more aggressive approach to Saudi Arabia?
I think this is a moment that we need to focus on getting through COVID-19 as best we possibly can. I think there will be a lot of reflections on how various countries behaved in this particular moment. Our focus right now is on making sure we can support our citizens and stabilize the global economy the best way we can, which we are doing through our membership in the G7, in the G20, in various international fora and approaches that we have, while at the same time focusing on making sure we're supporting Canadians and keeping them safe.
Merci. Dernière question avec suivi au téléphone.
Merci, thank you. The next question is from Teresa Wright from the Canadian Press. Your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Prime Minister. On the cruise ship anchored off the coast of Panama, what actions are being considered or will be taken to help the 248 Canadians aboard?
We have worked directly and contacted directly the Panamanian government to try and get an ability to bring those Canadians home. We know this is a very difficult situation for them, for their families. A lot of people around the world are worried about being able to get home. A lot of their family members here are feeling anxious and really want to see them brought home. I can tell you that the entirety of Global Affairs Canada employees are single-mindedly focused on this Herculean task of bringing Canadians home any way we can. And much of it involves negotiating with other countries to get permissions to cruise ships to dock, permissions for airplanes to lift off from their country where they've closed airspaces. We're going to continue to work diligently to do everything we can to get all Canadians home and provide significant consular support both in the meantime and to those people who are unable to get home.
Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Trudeau, est-ce que vous pouvez être plus précis un peu dans la mécanique pour ces nouvelles mesures annoncées pour les vols,
how these new measures will work for trips by train and plane? Who will be enforcing this? Will it be the airline companies? Because we saw that for international flights, there are people who did board flights even though they had symptoms. So how exactly can you be sure that this will be properly enforced? We expect those rules to be followed. Yes, it will be the responsibility of the companies to ensure that people who show any symptoms of COVID-19 do not board a train or a plane. We know that it is essential that people avoid travel that is non-essential and that any person who has symptoms of COVID-19 be self-isolating and stay home.
It is extremely important that people be following the rules. It will be important for operators of airlines and trains to ensure that people who are exhibiting symptoms do not board those trains. It'll be a Transport Canada rule that will be enforced. But at the same time, we're telling people, stay home if it's not absolutely essential for you to travel. Stay home absolutely if you're exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19, of a flu-like virus. We need you to keep yourselves safe. We need you to keep your loved ones and your neighbors safe, and we need you to keep from overburdening and endangering the safety of our healthcare workers and others who are doing so much to keep us safe as a country.
Sur l'aide aux provinces, Monsieur Trudeau,
on assistance for the provinces, you have provided $500 million for healthcare needs, but there are provinces having a lot of problems, Alberta, Newfoundland, and Labrador. Will there be another phase of assistance for those provinces that are in a very precarious situation right now? We are dealing with an unprecedented situation. We need to be there for each other, and the federal government will seek to help any province or any individuals or any businesses that are in trouble because of COVID-19. We continue to look at what we can do every single day and what we must do, how we can do more, and we will continue to work hand in hand with the premiers of the provinces and territories and other leaders right across the country to ensure that people have the necessary assistance.
We recognize this is a situation without precedent, a situation conversation that is beyond our collective and individual experience, and that's why we've made the commitment to help people who need help getting through this time, whether it's an individual, a family, a business, or indeed a province. And we continue to work every day to look at ways that we can help, look at how we can help, look at what we can do to help. Those conversations will continue to be ongoing for individuals, sectors, or indeed provinces that are facing particular difficulties.
Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. I want to revisit the energy sector question. Earlier this week, Finance Minister Bill Morneau said it was hours or days until the energy sector would find out what specifically the government would do. So when are they going to get the answers that they need?
We're continuing to work to try and provide workers in the energy sectors with the support that they need. We recognize that the collapse of oil prices around the world is hitting hard. People who've been extremely hard hit over the past years already. That is why we need to get this right, and we're working with provinces, we're working with industry, we're working with various sectors, including unions and others, to try and make sure that on top of the help we're already giving of $2,000 a month to people who are laid off, 75% wage subsidy so companies can keep people on the payroll, we're going to continue to make sure that once we are through this difficult time, people in industries and places right across the country are going to be able to pick themselves up and get back to work and have our economy continue to work strongly like it was before. It's going to take a lot of effort in the meantime, and it's going to take us doing different things and trying different things. But we are going to keep working until we manage to help everyone.
Hi, Ashley Burke, CBC News. As you mentioned at the top of your speech, you said that there have been encouraging signs out of British Columbia. Are you worried at all that Canadians will hear about those encouraging signs and become complacent?
I think encouraging signs is absolutely something we want to see. We want to see a decline in the rate of transmission, but people need to know that the decline in the rate of transmission happened because 2 weeks ago, people started heeding these instructions and started self-isolating and started engaging in social distancing. And over the intervening weeks, people have increased their following of advice, and that is an excellent sign. But if we're seeing a reduction in the spikes, that means what we are doing is working, and we therefore need to continue doing what we are doing. We are not out of the woods yet. Obviously, if the measures we're doing are working, we need to continue doing them, and that's why as a government we're making sure that people are able to continue doing what they're doing by flowing money to households, by supporting businesses with a 75% wage subsidy, by making access to credit that much easier. We're going to continue to do more things as we look at ways to help Canadians get through this so we can come out of this strong without a reappearance or resurgence of the virus afterwards.
If we start to see some positive results in a few places, it is because 2 weeks ago they started to follow the advice of Health Canada, in other words, to self-isolate and prevent the virus from spreading. So that means that the measures we have brought in are working, and they must continue to be applied. People must continue to self-isolate and maintain a safe distance from others so that we can really prevent the spread of COVID-19. And we will have to continue for quite a while again if we want to remain safe and see a decline in the number of cases and a flattening of the curve. And that's why we're giving so much help to families and businesses and communities. That's why we're making access to credit easier so that we can continue, in spite of the current difficulties, to follow that advice, because that will allow us to come out of this faster and in a better situation.
Domestic travelers getting on planes and getting on trains, and is it going to be based on the honor system? And if so, there have been cases of Canadians lying so they can continue to travel. How do you prevent that?
We are asking Canadians and telling Canadians that they need to remain home. They must as much as possible, avoid non-essential travel. This is something that is essential if we are going to get through this together. Obviously, if anyone is exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, they should not go out. They should stay home. They should not travel. And we are giving further tools to airlines and rail companies to ensure that anyone exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms does not travel. Okay.
We have been very clear in saying that people have to stay home and avoid non-essential travel. Of course, particularly so if someone has symptoms of COVID-19, that person should self-isolate and stay home and not be traveling for whatever reason, other than going to the hospital. But there are ways to do that safely. People should not be taking planes or trains if they exhibit any symptoms of COVID-19. And right now, we are providing new tools to our transportation companies so that they can ensure that those people do not travel.
CTV News. The government has shut its Service Canada offices because it deemed frontline workers there doing face-to-face work with the public was too risky. But we're still asking many Canadians, grocery store workers, bus drivers, nurses, to do this very same risky work. Are we going to do anything more to mitigate the risk these frontline workers face and anything to personally assist them further?
We recognize that as much as possible, services need to be shifted online or onto the telephone. That is why we've moved to close Service Canada offices so that people can access these greater resources online because people will be there to work and respond to them virtually and online, while at the same time creating opportunities to actually support people who do need that extra help. But of course, there are people who have to continue to go out and work. We think of grocery store workers, we think of emergency responders. There are people who are putting themselves at greater risk every day to provide essential services to Canadians. And yes, we need to do everything we can to protect them, but each and every one of us can do things that will protect them as well. Ensuring that we're only going out for groceries maybe once a week, ensuring that we're cutting down on our movements, that we're not in situations where we're going to have to call on emergency services or essential personnel for any reasons other than absolutely essential reasons. And that means staying safe and staying at home. Yes, there's things that businesses and governments are doing in order to keep frontline workers as safe as possible. But every single Canadian has things that we can do that will reduce the risk for grocery store cashiers or delivery people who are continuing to get food to our doors. These are the things that we all need to be responsible for because people out there doing essential services for us need to be protected.
We recognize that not putting people at risk by having online services available is a good way of preventing the risk to people who can work from home and don't have to do it face-to-face. We also know that there are workers who will have to continue to work in our stores, in our grocery stores, that they will have to be there, for example, to respond to emergencies. So we, with these companies, are trying to do what we can to make these employees safer, but I think as citizens and as consumers, we can all do things that will lessen the risk for these individuals, whether it is only going to do one's grocery shopping once a week or not calling on emergency services. And there are many, many things that we can do and that we must do to protect the people who are there to help us, who are providing essential services in this difficult time. And I invite everyone to reflect on what they can do to allow those people who do that essential work to remain healthy.
First of the month is coming up and many Canadians are going to have to pay their rent. And while the $2,000 a month is a good start, it doesn't roll out until after that. and then thereafter it might not be enough to cover the rent of many people across this country. So what are you hoping will happen, or what are you hoping can happen for those who can't make rent, considering that you have worked with the banks to help people defer mortgages? What about renters?
We're very much looking at different things we can do. At the federal level, we are limited in our tools. Much of protections for renters and relationship between renters and landlords are provincial areas of jurisdiction, but we are, of course, continuing to work with the provinces on ways we can do that. Access to credit through banks will be helpful as well, as we recognize people are using their credit cards for more and more things, and those balances are piling up, and they are really concerned about things. At the same time, we can point not just to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, but things like the Canada Housing Benefit, which will be coming out in Ontario in the month of April, will help vulnerable people be able to pay their rents. There are many different methods that we're trying and looking at in order to support Canadians through this difficult time. I recognize the anxiety with the beginning of the month coming, and we're looking at ways we can help people get through that.
Brian Mullen at Global News. Prime Minister, wanted to ask you for an update on your wife, Sophie. Has she been cleared by doctors, and how is she doing?
Sophie is feeling great. My family is doing well. My kids and myself, we're all doing well. We continue to follow the direct advice of health professionals on what next steps are. But like I said, we've asked people to stay at home and work from home as much as possible, not go out if they don't have to, and that certainly is something that we're doing and encouraging everyone to do. Sophie se sent énormément mieux.
Sophie feels much better now. She's in fine form, in my opinion, and the children are well as well. They're healthy, and we are continuing to follow all the advice of experts, like everyone should be doing, and like everyone should also be doing. We should stay at home and stay isolated as much as possible, and not go out unless it's absolutely necessary, and always follow public health advice.
Merci beaucoup. C'est qu'est-ce qui mettra fin à la conférence de presse aujourd'hui.
All right, and that is the Prime Minister of Canada speaking to Canadians on this.